Turner Smith from Town of Rama.
Colonel Robin Slade, representing Colonel Deanna Burt at the 50th Space Wing at Schriever.
Barb Watson, PPACG Employee Resources Manager.
Casey Partridge, PPACG Finance Manager.
Rachel Beck, Policy and Communication Manager.
Everyone met Bethany, who's recording or making sure things don't get too loud on us. So this is really a casual format. We want to walk through the three items that we pulled off the agenda that we wanted a lot of board members to get in depth. We go in depth for hours on it, but we want to make sure we take the time now to go through it and not take hours at the board meeting, 15, 20 people around the table. So it's
Find out.
always a challenge to get everything in. So the first one we've got is the public participation plan for transportation projects.
I'm going to go up to the podium so I can scroll. Thanks, Casey. So this public participation plan is specifically for the transportation work products that we produce here. The long-range plan, which we're about to kick off, and this is one of our first steps in initiating that next plan in the Transportation Improvement Program. The reason that we do communication planning is to be most efficient in using our resources rather than just going out and randomly generating newsletters or ads or things like that. We want to make sure that we're reaching the right people with the right messages in the places that they will be looking for them. So I want to draw your attention to a couple things in this plan. This is very different from the last one that we did. There was a lot of staff work on making this more specific and useful in outlining what our efforts will be. And at the board meeting, we'll be asking the board to release this for a 45-day public comment period. So not only do we outline what we plan to do for reaching the public and gathering their input on transportation planning, but we ask them what we think about what we're planning to do. So if you look at page 4, we did a lot of research before we undertook this plan. We looked at other public participation plans from MPOs around the country, best practices in the public relations industry, and also the feedback that we received from our advisory committees after the last plan. And you'll see some of the takeaways and best practices listed there on page 4. I'm telling you to look at page 4, and I forgot to navigate there. There we go. Okay. Would you like a paper copy? Okay.
Unless she scrolls really fast.
One of the most important things to note is that we know that in the past, public outreach efforts have largely relied upon the public meeting. And for many projects and programs, governments have held a single public meeting and called it good. But in this age of technological advances, that is just no longer sufficient. It's very difficult to get good participation at public meetings, and we get a very small number of self-selected people. And so while we will continue to use public meetings, there's still a valuable way to talk to our constituents in more detail than we might be able to in electronic formats. What we're doing in this plan is outlining a lot more ways that we're going to reach out to people. And the guiding concept there is that we will try to make it as convenient as possible for those who are interested in participating, and that we will go to them as much as possible instead of asking them to come to us. On the next page, we've outlined our strategies and our audiences. A number of these audiences listed are specifically mentioned in federal regulations as groups that we need to reach out to, and then we have also listed a number that are appropriate for our local community. And then, whoops. Farther down, there's a few strategies here that I'd like to point out to you. The first is, when we talk about reaching people, and we're having all the internal discussions on what's the best way to reach people, and we had a bit of a light bulb moment and said, well, why don't we ask people? So one of the first things that we plan to do is to do a survey and just ask people what topics they're most interested in and what are the best ways to reach them and the most convenient ways for them to participate. And then as we go forward on particular parts of the long-range plan, we'll respond to that feedback accordingly. Another one that I want to point out is, I kind of mentioned this earlier, that we'll make sure to use a wide variety of tactics because we have a wide variety of stakeholders. We won't depend just on one thing. Some of the tactics we'll use will gather a large quantity of people, and others will be more quality measures, and it's kind of a way of, what's the word for financial portfolios? When you diversify in your financial portfolio, we will do that with our public input tools. And then the last one that I want to point out is toward the bottom there, and that is we've received a lot of feedback from our stakeholders and our citizen committee in particular that what we've done in the past can sometimes be overwhelming and too much verbiage. So we're really going to put an emphasis in the next 4 years on visualization, whether that's infographics or just being more concise in our text. We're going to try and be more concise and then give people the links to more detailed information if they're interested in that. And then moving along, you'll see we've listed kind of our menu of tactics here, all the various tools that are at our disposal for reaching people. That includes our committees, and this plan is overseen primarily by the Citizen Advisory Committee. They had a look at this on August 31st, and they always have a lot of great and helpful feedback. And then the last thing that I want to point out is on page 9, and that is we've added in this public participation plan an extensive evaluation section because it doesn't do us a lot of good to go out and write newsletters and do webinars if we're not paying attention to who's using them and how effective they are. So a key component of this plan is that we will be paying close attention to how effective these various techniques are, and then we can respond accordingly. So that's all that I wanted to mention to you. Questions or comments? I realize some of you, you may not have read through this entirely yet, so you can grill me at the board meeting when you have.
Gold star if you but yeah, any thoughts on, kind of the events, beyond Rama days? Or maybe any open houses related at Schriever or other things that we should think about?
No, the PAL 24 meetings that I've gone to have been well attended, and people have been very engaged, and I think there's probably been a lot of good input from those meetings, and I think it's probably very helpful for planning on just that corridor, and I think that's just one example of how this approach is working.
Which approach do you mean?
The PEL 24 study. Because I've been to 2 of those meetings, and one at Falcon and one at Peyton, and it's very much in line with what you're talking about right here.
Good turnout at those meetings?
Yeah. I mean, you're probably talking. I would say an average of 35 people at each meeting, something like that. So I would say that's probably a good number, and they're not sitting on their haunches. They're all up, and they have they have graphs all the way around the room of this and that, and it's not a lecture. People are up and they're looking at each of these graphs and going around, and they're talking with the people that are available. It's been a learning experience both for the people that are there and for CDOT and the representatives of the study. So I think it's been a very good informational exchange all the way around, and that's exactly what you're talking about here. So I think it's been wonderful.
Good. I'll move up here so you don't get a crick in your neck.
Oh, I'm fine.
Good to hear.
I did see that one of your target populations is a military population, and we do periodically at Schriever have town hall meetings or like a state of the base type meeting, and so if you did want to have access to that population to either make a presentation, do some kind of a survey, that type of thing, or even, supply, as you said, some kind of a webinar or video or whatever as an outreach type thing, we could absolutely facilitate that.
Thank you. That would be very helpful. We want to take advantage of those networks that already exist as much as we can.
Farm does a good job of it. Wall military folks, I think, it's got to be like, is it October 6th or state of base, that may be Peterson, or is that Schriever?
No, it is Schriever.
Oh, great.
Well, they may have one as well, but we do
Okay.
also. I think ours may be a little bit sooner. It might be in September. So I'll check and see if we've gotten the invitations out for that yet.
Okay. Here next Wednesday, you can announce that to you.
Okay.
USAFA does the games, the rest of the state of the wing, state of the base. It's always good to share those, but, yeah, the town hall meetings would be good to do. That's good. Thank you, thank you. Now, the question is, we'll roll on. Don't have to fill the time. Deck of cards show up. All right, next one we have is PPACG's strategic plan. Actually, we're just going to keep going?
Mm-hmm.
We'll have a consultant with us next Wednesday, but not today.
So a little history on this item. Last fall, the board requested information on PPACG's strategic plan. We do not currently have a strategic plan, and so the board gave the direction that they would like us to start the process of creating one. And then in the spring, there was a draft scope of services and a timeline that the board approved. And then we contacted Mountain States Employers Council, which is a membership organization, if you're not familiar with it, that a lot of government agencies are members of. And Barb, who else would you say is members of Mountain States? Or
They're in several states, and there's all sorts of organizations
Okay.
in the different states that belong.
And a lot of our local governments want.
Yes. So they provide human resources, and they do training, and what else? I'm looking at you because I know you work with them so frequently.
A lot of employment law, a lot of business relations and communication classes. They give a lot of training to employees of their member governments.
They in turn referred us to a consultant that they are now using for that kind of work. And the name of that consultant is Aero Performance Group. So I've been talking to them for a couple months now, and they've given us this scope, which you will see in your packet, if and when you get it. And they've outlined objectives for collecting relevant information, and then having some planning sessions with the board to talk about mission, vision, values, what kind of information the board wants to include in the strategic plan, what's important to you, and then creating a plan and an implementation schedule. So there's a very detailed timeline, as you can see here. Can you see that, or shall I make it bigger? That's better. So you can see this looks out till through a couple of months. and then we can proceed from there if things go to plan. They've outlined some staff liaisons and who from Arrow will be working on the project. You'll meet those people at the board meeting, and they can talk in more detail about their background and their approach. And then you can see here they've given us an estimate of about $19,000, and that is currently not included in next year's budget, so we need to figure out how to fund that. Questions or comments on that?
Are there any grants out there to cover that?
Maybe.
We'll have to find a grant writer
Are there any grants out there for that? Can you tell I come from a poor town?
One of the folks, the Department of Local Affairs, they may be possible, but they like to get money out to projects like the Alma Comprehensive Plan. They don't like to give money to councils of governments, for council of governments to do their own work. They want to have the money go out to the smaller local governments, towns, cities. They're usually not the big towns, counties, or cities. They usually don't fund Colorado Springs or El Paso County. We'll chat with them between now and
Local affairs, I always thought it was legal affairs.
yeah, then you don't want to talk to them because they're. And so we'll, yeah, as we proceed through this, we're trying to find budget space for it. So we'll keep an eye on some of those grants. Percolating for a couple of months. It's got some organization to it. And cost estimate, so we can move ahead as we want to.
So, give me an idea as a board member, what my job is here. Because am I supposed to look at this and say, oh yeah, this is a great idea, when I really don't know where this is going? Or am I just supposed to say, I'm very uncertain about this and kill it? Because, you know, to me, when I look at this, I can read through it and everything, and it looks good on paper, but there's also a little pie in the sky here. And I gotta say, I really wonder, is it necessary?
I think it's necessary to check in with the board to see what direction they want to take, because the board decides if we want to go into other directions. Like once upon a time, the board said, hey, we should go into military planning. We've never done that before. And so.
Military planning.
Yeah, joint land use study.
Okay.
So military impact planning.
Okay.
The old acronym, it's still on our website, isn't it, somewhere?
Yes.
So military impact planning is what the board said. We as staff brought it forward to say, okay, strategically, is that a good discussion the board should have? And then from there, we told them there was a grant available to do it. And the state money and federal money, we can almost do it for free. It won't cost the local governments anything. So it's kind of a hit or miss strategic planning. This is kind of bringing it up to the board to say, okay, board, let's have that discussion. What are those things that you may or may not want to get into, or have a discussion about what you may or may not want to get into? I mean, over the years, the board's had different discussions of what direction should a regional organization take? Should it stay in its lane? I mean, the last time we did this, the answer was stay in your lane. The board member said, we do area agency and aging, we do it well. We do transportation planning, we do that well. So do that. We do air quality planning, water quality. Those are our bread and butter programs, that kind of institutionalized grants. So at that time, I think it was 2007, 2008, the board didn't have an interest going in other directions. So now that we're 8 years later, it's probably a good time to come back and check in with the board, see what areas are not being covered. So when I go talk to local governments around the region of Teller County this week, 5 elected officials in Teller County saying, you know, here's what PPACG does. Well, what other things do you, the local governments, the county, cities, towns, what do you got that you can't have with a regional discussion on? Because we're a regional region. So if they want to get into, I don't know, liquor licenses was one of the topics they brought up, or transportation in the rural areas. Is that something we should have a discussion or a program around here at PPACG? So it's a chance to formally check in with the board and see where they want to go, and then if they want to go in a certain direction, part of our challenge is to fund it. As you said, is there a grant for that? We would ask the board, you know, what are the, we can present to the board, what are those possible funding sources?
I don't know about liquor licenses, but transportation in rural areas would seem to be a natural extension of what you're already doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, we run the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority. So money comes out.
Which does a tremendous amount of city transportation projects. Because Colorado Springs is a major member of the PPRTA.
They get 3 votes, but you get 1.
I went to a class recently put on by the Center for Nonprofit Excellence. It was really helpful. It was about board roles and staff roles, and I went in the capacity as a board member so I would behave myself and do what I was supposed to do. And one thing that they really emphasized is that it's up to the board to set the strategy, and then it's up to the staff to execute it, and that those are the lanes that we should be working in. And so I think it's helpful for any organization to have a strategic plan, and maybe what would be helpful for the board to discuss is the scope. How detailed do you want it to be? How much time do you want to spend on it? That sort of, the scope.
Because you can spend years on it, or months, or weeks, it depends, and Rachel, right? How deep a dive does the board want to get into for areas that maybe local governments are doing now, but they want to do better on a regional level?
It should be a helpful tool for the board as well. And you know, as a fairly new board member, one of our other fairly new board members, when she came on the board, who really pushed for a strategic plan, had said that when she joined the organization, she really felt kind of lost and didn't know how to be a helpful board member and give direction because it took her so long to get up to speed. And so one of the functions of a strategic plan could be to help new board members when they join the board immediately get up to speed on what they need to know and what direction the organization is headed.
Right now, we do it by program, so we can talk for hours on transportation. What's the transportation planning function at PPACG? It has goals and objectives and plans and budgets and everything. Very agency in nation. It has a 4-year plan. It has budget. It has goals, objectives, things that are part of the grant. But this is to go beyond that. And how, you know, we're a little different animal because we have a lot of institutional programs. We don't have just staff sitting around to work on whatever the board comes up with, because we get reimbursed for the things that we have grants for. And so one of the challenges will be we can't use grant-funded folks to do what they're doing now to do non-grant things.
Right.
Because the grant won't pay you back.
Right.
You can't say, hey, we're going to do a regional security overview, you know, Homeland Security type district. And I'm going to use I can't use the current staff. So part of the board discussion, and the third leg of the stool that Rachel talks about is, you know, the board sets those directions, staff will try to implement that, but then it's how do you pay for that? You know, because we're a dues-paying organization, and that dues that the local governments pay go toward these other grants. So dues from local governments is always tough to increase, and to do that, it has to have a purpose. You know, what's the bang for the buck for the local governments to give more money toward strategic plan implementation? Whatever that's going to be, but we're back to, we need a strategic plan first.
I think you hit on it a minute ago when we were talking about purpose. I mean, you're serving 3 counties and 16 communities and 5 military bases and installations. Okay? And so it would seem to me that what is the need that is not being met that this organization should or could fill? I mean,
You've been reading the scope, and that's what the scope's for, to get to, hey, board members, what are those things we may want to get into as a regional organization?
Or not.
Or not? Because some things are
you think this study will identify those?
we're going to ask, and the board may come back on one end of the spectrum and say, we're good. We don't have any other thing that we want PPACG to get into. Or they may say, you know, this would be good for PPACG to be the clearinghouse for environmental documentation, because no one else currently does that. And the results of your PDL study, that resides now at CDOT, but should it be there, or should we take what they do and bring it into a regional clearinghouse that all the environmental documents that military bases do, local governments do, the state does, everyone, should that go in our clearinghouse? Because right now it goes to individual governments, whether it's CDOT, state, defense. The military bases have stacks and stacks of them. So should we do that? And so the effort here is to try to find out from the board what do they want to get into. And then based on that, we can say, okay, here's options of how to get into that. You know, so it's a programmatic thing and a funding thing of trying to figure out after we define the what. Then we get to the how.
I'm trying to get more than, not less.
We like to get more.
Your clearinghouse did not hit me well.
It's one of the ideas we've heard over the years. But this is a formal way for the board to kind of weigh in. Are we good, or do we want to get into something that's not being done, or it's better to be done at the regional level?
I don't think you should worry that this is going to be a throw all ideas of what new projects we could take on and sort through them. I think that the idea is to take a step back and look at a higher level and say, what is the purpose of this organization and how do we get there? Are we doing the right things? Are we using our resources efficiently? That kind of thing.
Oh, I have no doubt that this board will vote down anything it shouldn't get into. I'm comfortable with that. I think there's enough common sense around the table that that's not going to happen.
Good.
Okay? But if I have a question around this, will $19,000 find something relevant that we should be doing that we're not currently doing?
Definite maybe. I mean, I think it would be most logically, it would be probably something that comes out of our existing programs. Like, we're the designated metropolitan planning organization. The governor says, you guys, PPACG, you're that agency. So out of that spun, we know transportation, we know funding. When the Pikes Peak RTA came along, we could speak that language. And the board said, yes, let's go and be the contractor for the PPRTA. So it was growing out of an existing program we do. So in our area agency and aging, we do a few services, but we contract most of those services out. The board could say, hey, Rob, with our area agency and aging, could we get into more of the service delivery? So instead of shipping out $2.5 million to providers like Silver Key and all the others, well, we could probably do that in-house. Buy a new building, get into that program. I mean, we'd have to flesh it out, of course, but board members, what do we want to explore? But yeah, we're not going to go explore things that, like go run an airport. I mean, that's not our idea.
I think that's a really good example, too, of what a strategy might be to accomplishing our goal versus making ourselves a to-do list. So this process won't be, what stuff are we going to add to our lengthy to-do list? It's more like what Rob just described. If our mission is to ensure comprehensive services to the seniors in this community and ensure that they can live independently in their home, what are the best ways to do that? And then in Rob's example, the strategy, how we do that is we are probably going to partner with, for most of those services, with outside agencies who are already doing that. That's what they specialize in, rather than doing it ourselves. That's the kind of discussion we'll have. Not all the boards sitting around the table and saying, hey, guys, what other stuff should we do?
Yeah, we don't want all the pet projects from all the elected
Right.
officials. You all got probably plenty of ideas of things that could be done, but we really want to start with, we currently have these resources, this is what we do.
How do we use them efficiently
Right.
to accomplish the goal?
So for $20,000, I think we can have that discussion. Again, take on something behind the sky. I'm not sure the board is ready for some of these things. Some board members may propose it, but I think you'll hear the rest of the board members saying, boy, I don't know if we want to head in that direction. Others may say, sure. So I think it's a worthwhile effort to go through. $19,000 is not a lot to do that check-in. And if we do it on our normal pace of every 10 years, that's okay. But I think we'll probably check in with it more frequently.
Have we done this before?
Not to this level. We more had a board workshop. That one.
And that was in-house, not,
Well, I think we had facilitated. Yeah, we just did it with board members.
now, do we come out of this with any sort of an accreditation for this, for the PPACG?
Not through a strategic plan. We're already certified accredited for the things we do. We sign off on that and have to prove that to every grantor that gives us money. So for what we do, we're covered. If we get into something new, sure, if we were going to be, I don't know. we're
So
gonna
this doesn't bolster that in any way?
I don't think so. I don't think there's maybe Rachel knows, there's no certification of, it's probably just more good practice to have a strategic plan. I don't think it ties, there's no association of strategic planning groups. So this would just give us, as a board, that discussion of, look, we looked at everything, we want to make sure we're doing the best we can with the resources we have, and then take it from there.
Okay. Who chose this group?
I contacted Mountain States Employers Council, the membership organization that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
We typically go to them for work like this as part of our membership.
Right.
They are a really great organization, have a great reputation. Been
I'm well
along.
aware.
Yeah, okay. And so they are no longer doing this work in-house, so they referred us to this consultant who has been doing this work for their members for about 8 years.
So in Mountain States, we're to charge a fee as well.
Oh, yeah.
We always ask them first, as you probably know, ask them, hey, could you do this as part of our membership dues we pay Mountain States? And they do a lot for that. But for this, yeah, they just don't have that in-house capability, so they now have Arrow Performance Group. There's probably others, so they probably add more of it.
Yeah.
I contacted a couple of local people and did not receive bids from them.
Are they allowed to data mine Mountain States?
What does that mean?
Or whose data?
For, like if you had somebody that was cashier level 1 or something, would they be allowed to data mine that?
Oh, as far as employment information?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they just finished doing that with our salary system.
So
That's another function they do.
yeah, but they take that information and use that as well as bringing information in from other employers.
Oh,
So-
for salary information, absolutely. They go to private sector, nonprofit, government. They have stacks and books of.
Right, oh, I knew they brought in other outside, but they're mining information from here as well.
Yeah, for salary surveys.
I assumed as much.
So, yeah, they're good at sharing. So, but for this effort, that could be a little different. It'd be data mining with our board members and others.
Oh, they'd go broke.
I don't know, it may be a very rich conversation. So that's where we're headed, to, kind of check in with the board members, see what they think.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel can sit now,
Yes.
2 for 2. Casey, you want to talk through
Sure, you want me to go up there?
PPACG budget overview?
Sure.
I do it from there unless you want to.
I was just going
Do you
to
have
pull up
anything
the,
to show?
I was just going to pull up the action.
There you go. Rachel's faster.
Yes, good. Perfect. We are bringing to the board information only for the committee to go back to their member governments. We have started the 2017 board budget process. This is my first year at this, so we started a little early to give myself some time to get it right. Noteworthy for 2017, we have an increase in federal funding for the joint land use study of $395,000. That's to add Schriever to the project, and it extended the project slightly. We have an increase in funding for the Area Agency on Aging of 6.4%, which is, I had that number. Is this the latest memo?
267?
It's not on this memo. And a proposal to allow some staff salaries to increase, this is an old memo, I think.
Yeah, that looks like an old memo.
Yeah. We are, actually, the latest memo is, we are asking for we're looking to increase the budget $14,000 to get everybody for the new salary range to the minimum. That we will be looking to do that in the budget, and that will be depending on budget numbers. And we are expecting and anticipating an increase of 20% for health insurance. So, was this? See if we've got the latest in the.
Yeah, maybe we printed it.
I know we updated this. Yeah, see, there we go. Sorry.
What's in the packet is an old version.
All right, we can update that.
So looking at that, yeah, the area of aging is $267,000. A proposal to increase some staff salaries to the minimum for the salary range, reported on the Mountain States salary survey. The total cost would be about $14,000. Do possible additions of 1 to 2 FTEs based upon grant funding increases and associated scope increases in the grant, so depending on what the grant dollars will allow, and the anticipated 20% increase. We have attached to this
We're looking, maybe adding 1 or 2, as Casey was saying, basically. The final numbers from the grants and what the program managers proposed. Again, this is not the budget approval, this is just a heads up for those high-level discussions that we want the board to start thinking about.
We have also included in the packet the proposed 2017 member government dues. We have not changed that since last year's budget. Total is $458,000. It has changed slightly, government to government, county to county, depending on their assessed valuation. Prior, we had used the 2014 assessed valuation. For the 2017 budget, we used the 2015 assessed valuation, so some of the cities and counties' rates have changed slightly, and so that's in the packet. So we are asking that the member governments take this back.
Payment went down $4.
Yeah, yeah.
What can we say?
The following steps for the approved budget, we bring, in October, we'll submit the budget packet for the fiscal year and with the proposed expenditures, and that will come to the board in October. And then no later than December 31st, hopefully by November, we'll have adopted the budget for 2017.
What's the law on that? You have to turn that in by, what, the 15th of December?
We don't,
Yeah, we generally follow more of local governments of the state, and so they have to get things submitted. The board has to get it no later than their October meeting, and then by the end of the year, we have to sign off. We're not exactly a local government, but we kind of have that one.
so we're not under any law per se, but board practice.
It's just easier because we're an association of local governments.
Right.
Follow your rules, then everyone understands the deadlines and other things.
But you're not under the same law, huh?
Not exactly, but we follow it. I mean, yeah, we could probably make the case that, the sunshine laws and some of the other state laws, since we're not exactly a government, but we follow them anyway.
Right.
It's just easier, and we don't have to have the debate every time we have a meeting. Should that be open? Should that be recorded? It's easier. Close enough. As Casey said, this is get the board started. Before you leave, let's get your copy of the correct minutes, so your packet's up to date. Maybe Bethany, you can get a print of 9A. I don't know where the other one came from. We try to get rid of them so that we don't find their way out. So, yeah, those are the general parameters that the board likes to hear about. Number one, is the dues going up?
Yeah, and no, they're not.
Overall, no. And the board decided a few years ago that if we were going to do a proposed dues increase, we should do that in March or April. So that you can all, in the local government discussions, decide. Is that, it's better doing that over the summer than in the fall.
So you can do it for the budget process.
Yes, for the local government budget process, which a lot do the drafts over the summer. Others do it real. I think the board agreed, and we agreed as well, right around April. So the last dues increase was $48,000. Not a lot. And that gets us to a total of, as you see on the chart, total of $458,000. And that leverages up to the about $8 million operating budget, and then makes the board members eligible for the big money, the transportation program or the aging program or services program. So we send out, depending on if you count the PPACG board or just what PPACG board sends out, $120 million a year for that dues. So if you're $19, you have a vote for hundreds of millions of dollars. You may not get it for your state highway, but
I'll keep banging.
but you get a vote and you're part of that region.
I'm like that 2-pound dog, buddy.
Oh.
Your ankles are going to get sore someday.
Now you're taking care of the Callahan there for me. Thank you.
It can draw blood.
I can. I might be rabid too. You'll die slowly.
So that's the budget overview. So we just wanted to give you a preview and once you get into the details. And as I said, a workshop setting is a good place to say, hey, what about that line? We're not that deep in the budget yet.
Right. We're,
Dues or grants or people. You also get a work program. The work program, I believe, is still on our website. Probably under our library, Rachel.
What are you looking for?
the work plan from last year.
Yes.
Work program.
So you can look at, that's really our scope of services for all our grants. Tying back to the strategic plan, everyone gets to look at that and say, here's what we do now.
I'm really glad to see the addition in there for the employees. I think that's good that they have that in there. I've got to say that.
Take care of our all-stars. Wow. There's 3 over there. But I think it's,
That's only right.
Well, we appreciate it.
it's right now, we're only into, we're trying to get those folks that are below the minimum of their market salary range to get them up to the minimum. But as
You got to get them there before they walk.
don't want them to walk.
No.
So right now, the staff is working to update the work program, and then that ties into our budget, and so they're all working on their budget. So I don't do all the budgets for them. I let them do their own, and I pull it all together and say, okay, it looks good, or it balances, or Rob and I work on the final project.
Or you need to hack a little.
Yeah, sometimes. So, but a lot of them are, have these grants that they have to
Walk into their
follow.
office and hand them a pair of scissors. Yeah.
So, yeah, see what you can cut. Little off the top.
But from what we talked earlier, it makes sense. The program managers are experts. Sure. For transportation, aging services here in water quality. They know what their grant allows. They know how much their grant is. And then they have the dreaded match money discussion. Because they get federal, state money, and then foundation money, all sorts of money. It's like, okay, there's pick a number, 10, 20% match. Department of Local Affairs is a 50% match. So they usually bring the scissors with them. Say, okay, whose program can we cut, and then get our. So, but most of those dollars are pretty straight out there. There's not a lot of movement. But as we start looking at that, how do we deliver that? And do we use consultants or do we use staff? What's the mix? So that's always a annual discussion. How to best do that? Because our federal and state agencies, they review our budgets, see what we spend on. Before they pay us back, they verify monthly, quarterly, or whatever it is that we spend it in the appropriate way. And that's consistent. So that's our budget overview. Any other topics from both of you? Robin, you covering the dance at the high school again?
I'm thinking about it.
I am. It is homecoming.
It is.
We're not.
No?
No. We have a junior left. That's always. Right. I think we'll let you run the park. Close it up. You ready for that?
That was a lot shorter and sweeter than I thought it was going to be.
So we scheduled it for 2 hours in case we get, in-depth discussions on any topic. We don't have to fill the 2 hours.
Yeah.